back from the break. My name is Shruti Goli, and I'm going to be talking to you today about fixing product analytics and lessons from a frustrated Microsoft PM. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my life. So you get to learn all about me. You get to learn about me being frustrated as a Microsoft PM. And then you also get to learn about what I did about it. So let's start way back when. I was actually at my mom's house last weekend, and my mom and grandma and I were looking through some old photos, and we came across this gem. This was 20 years ago when I was 5 years old. My best friend, she made this joke. She was like, Shruti, were you cracking out PRDs back then? And pretty sure that wasn't even a term back then. So, but I'm pretty sure I was playing Neopets or Club Penguin or something along those lines. And my mom captured me really well. And there's this phrase that as you hear me talk today, it's really evident and stays true. I only learned about this quote 3 years ago, but it's Whitney Wolfe Herd, the first female self-made billionaire. She said, have a dream, chase it down, jump over every single hurdle, and run through fire and ice to get there. And I wake up to this quote every morning. It's actually plastered on my wall in my room. So if that's something you want to do or get a little tattoo of it over here, I won't stop you. So I'll skip 5 to 18, okay, or 5 to 22. I'll just jump at graduation. So I graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in computer science. And I'm not sure if you guys saw that meme where it says like, boys make you cry, but computer science makes you cry more. That was literally me, I'm not gonna lie. It was a very tough 4 years in the cornfields of Illinois. Like I took a 4-hour bus, but I graduated with a degree in computer science. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, I can't do this software engineering thing. It's just literally not for me. I love talking to people. I don't like sitting behind a computer and coding. So I got very blessed with this opportunity. I became a product manager at Microsoft shortly after I graduated. And I was super, super excited. It's one of those FANG company jobs. Microsoft has one of the best PM programs in the world. So me being 22-year-old Shruti, I was like, okay, yay. I get to learn how to build product. I get to talk to customers. I don't have to code. All things that I wanted, right? But let me explain a little bit about maybe what happened once I got there. First, let me talk about what it looked like to work at Microsoft. So my typical day, first of all, the team that I was working on was Intune endpoint management. And more specifically, I was working on enterprise analytics. And how did I build a feature at Microsoft? Well, similar to many of you sitting in this room, being a PM at Microsoft, I was working with the customers, so we had something called an MVP program. And what that meant was that we cherry-picked our top customers, the ones providing us the most amount of money, or the ones willing to give us the most amount of input. And I got to sit down with them on a Teams call and share my prototype designs on PowerPoint and get their thoughts before I pushed out a product. And I'd collect that feedback, I'd go talk to my UI UX designers, I'd go talk to my engineers, and I'd be doing this for 5 features at any given time. And ultimately, over the course of 6 months, I would start rolling these features out. And there's this sense that, FANG companies are the best at building product. Everyone in my college was like, Shruti, you have to go get a FANG company job. You're gonna learn so much. And keep in mind, I was learning a lot. It's very different than just studying computer science. But there were plenty of frustrations, and there were plenty of reasons they were actually wrong. So one of the key frustrations is that there's a lot of hippos at Microsoft. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term hippo, I'm not calling people at Microsoft the animal hippos. I'm calling them the highest income paid person's opinion. So I would go through this massive life cycle of researching, talking to my customers, talking to my UI UX designers and my engineers, all for that work to go to waste, right? Because my boss's boss's boss said, hey, Shruti, You're building this feature and you're gonna push it out. And this is what's gonna drive the most amount of revenue. That's super defeating to someone like me. I mean, you saw me on a computer at 5 years old. Like, I was very interested on making impact from a very young age. And the problem with this is that the decisions that people at Microsoft were making were often hippo-centric decisions rather than product-centric or data-driven decisions. So it didn't mean that I was spending as much time focusing on my users as much as I was focusing on my boss's boss's boss. And that wasn't the only problem, right? There were frequent reorgs at Microsoft. So what that meant was I would be working with the designer and I'd be working with engineers and to get this feature rolled out. And 3 months into my project, we'd have to switch it all up and I'd be working with new people, or I would be working on a new feature. And so every time I thought I was taking 3 steps forward, I ended up taking 2 steps back. And this often would slow down a feature rollout, as any of you can imagine. And what's the impact with that? The impact is that there's constant erosion of institutional knowledge, and there's no way to go back to my predecessor at PM and ask them about what they did, maybe a couple Teams chats more than anything, but really not so much. And lastly, there was no clear understanding of usage post-product rollout, even though Microsoft owns Microsoft Clarity. Okay, let me break that down for you. So let's start with the first one. No clear understanding of usage post-product rollout. What did that mean? I would work really hard for 6 months, push a feature out, and the most amount of information that I would get is from a call from an MVP customer saying, hey, Shruti, nice feature, right? Like, I don't know if they used it. I don't even know if they clicked on it. Maybe they just saw an email and heard about it. Or the most amount of data I actually got collected was, hey, this customer or these many customers clicked on this tab. So I still have no idea if I did a good job, if the feature was actually useful, if I made a customer impact, and if my feature work was actually driving the revenue that Microsoft was bringing. And even though Microsoft owns Microsoft Clarity, so if any of you work in big tech or worked at a FANG company, you know that oftentimes companies like Microsoft have so many divisions, right? They have Intune, they have Teams, they have Microsoft Clarity. And as a result of being such a big organization, there's so many silos and so many gaps. So first of all, I discovered like by accident that we had a product called Microsoft Clarity. And then I spent months trying to get it implemented into our product and our service, only to fail in the end, because there's a bunch of silos and organizational divides. So the impact is that I didn't have full clarity because I didn't have Microsoft Clarity or anything. And I really had no idea how my users were thinking or feeling on any of the features that were being rolled out. This is a summary of all my frustrations, and it's absolutely crazy that to even see that all of this was just something I experienced in my time being there, which was not so long of a time. And it's crazy to experience these many problems at one of the largest organizations in the world, right? And one of the largest tech companies in the world. There was a lack of longitudinal product data. There was a lack of constant user research. There was a lack of a knowledge repository. What does that mean? That means that every time someone switched teams, every time we had a reorg, I was at a loss and I had to start from ground zero. And ultimately, I was in a decision-making culture that prioritizes stakeholders, so my boss's boss's boss, who decides whether they get to promote me or not, over actual data-driven decisions. So decisions that I came to and I found that I thought would be the biggest bang for our buck. And yeah, I was frustrated. I'm gonna take a pause here. Has anyone else experienced this kind of frustration? Show me a raise of hands. Okay, so I'm not the only one. That's great. I'm really happy to hear that. So now the question is, what did I do about this, right? Good question, Shruti. Let's find out. So let's think back to my journey. I graduated May 2019, started working at Microsoft September 2019. And then 6 months into my full-time job, my new graduate job, I got the lucky opportunity of working from home. So I really didn't experience too much of in-person working because COVID hit in March 2020. And for someone who, as you can see, I love to talk, I love to socialize, I'm pretty extroverted, COVID was really hard for me. I would go do my Microsoft work, and then after that, we really didn't know what was going on. I was stuck at home, sitting at home. And ultimately, I got all this free time. Now, what do you take when you have Shruti and all this free time? All these Microsoft frustrations, they're building up slowly and steadily behind the scenes, right? And so I was like, I have to do something. I actually have nothing better to do, so I really have to do something right now. And that's where Stitchology came about. So what I realized is that, hey, I'm at Microsoft, again, one of the biggest companies, and I realized I might not be the only person who's this frustrated. I mean, think about, like, almost 99% of you raised your hands just now. So what did I do with all this free time? I went on a lot of walks, almost 4 to 5 miles every single day with my mask on. And through the course of that, I spoke to over 200 PMs, UX designers, and researchers. And I iterated a lot on my learnings and my direction over 1.5 years. And really, that's the birth of Stitchology. But let me go back one step. What were my findings in 1.5 years from 200 people? What I learned is a few things matter. First, all of us here in this room want to know where and why are users most frustrated. The second thing we all want to know is that we want to be able to query product data to answer any of our complex questions. So think back to my Microsoft journey. I really wanted to understand how people were using my product or my feature after I pushed it out, right? If I was working on features A, B, C, I wanted to know if feature A was doing its best so I can continue working on that and deprioritize feature C. 3, being able to reference and build upon prior research and user feedback. So what that means is really what I was learning from everyone is that this whole institutional knowledge loss is a recurring problem everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're at a startup or if you're at as big of a company as Microsoft. 4, sifting through all the noise of the data sets. There's plenty of data out there, we all can agree. The question is, how can I most effectively spend my time in an efficient way and gather all my learnings? And lastly, how can I turn large qualitative and quantitative data sets into impactful product decisions? So how do I take all this data? How do I sift through the noise? And how do I find what exactly my user is frustrated about and iterate quickly? So after talking to 200 people just like yourselves, I really set out a goal. My goal was, if everyone is facing these frustrations that I'm facing, I want to find exactly what I need, when I need it, as fast as I need it. And really, that's the goal behind Stitchology, and that's what I sought after. I took all my frustrations and all my free time in COVID, and this was the output of it. And honestly, I'm 25, I don't have a child yet. This is the closest thing that I had to a baby. This was my baby. And so after iterating for 1.5 years, we had the opportunity to sell our company. So if any of you here have heard of Trymata UI, they're one of the largest usability testing solutions in the market. And in May of last year, we had the opportunity to be acquired. Now, you might be asking me, and many people have asked me this, Shruti, why the hell did you do that, right? You just started creating your baby, you could go raise money, you could go build the next billion-dollar company. And don't get me wrong, I've thought a lot about this before and when that all happened. But let's go back to June 2020. And all the way up until May 2020, over the course of iterating and meeting all sorts of people, I built a vast set of mentors and a big network of people that I could reach out to. And one of them introduced me to the CEO of Trymata UI, Rit. And one thing that Rit and I realized is that product analytics is great and all, right? I've taken all my frustrations and created this awesome product that I can use for myself, and so can anyone else. But the power of it, when you see it married to usability testing, is something like no other. We were going back and forth, and I saw so much potential and so much power from merging these two tools. And let me share how, right? So the vision that I saw is, let's go back to Microsoft. Just imagine if those 5, 6 features that I was pushing out every quarter, I could gather all that product performance data. I could really understand, okay, my users are most frustrated on ABC, go fix that. My users are not frustrated and are extremely happy on DEF. And then from that, after I understand where they're most frustrated, I could extract those insights from my data, go run those usability tests really quickly, rather than, I'm not joking you, I literally jump on Teams calls and share a PowerPoint. Like, it's so old school. It's just like funny to think about, because today I use Figma and run usability tests and just automate my entire life. And so I find that hilarious. But and taking all those results and all the decisions that you want to make for your features, and then building KPIs and making that decision chain. And so for me, we had an opportunity of growing that by itself without usability testing, but to be able to see the power with usability testing was something else, right? Let's go back to all my Microsoft PM frustrations. Let's recap that. Let's talk about those hippos at Microsoft, right? Or those frequent reorgs that I was facing. And there's no clear understanding of usage post-product rollout. And I wanted to get rid of all of that. And this is how we got rid of that. When we merged both the tools, and now we're called Trymata, you can see on my shirt, but it was a perfect way to get rid of all of these frustrations. Now, I could start making data-driven product decisions. B, I had a huge knowledge repository of my users over time and how they were interacting with my product. So what that meant was, now I didn't have to worry about institutional knowledge. And lastly, I understood the before, the during, and after of every new feature change. As someone who's so data-driven, and it's been ingrained in me, I think, just studying computer science, it's so important for me to make decisions based off of how my users are thinking, feeling, how they're operating, and the data shows it all, right? So I got to say sayonara to all my Microsoft PM frustrations. But I didn't do this alone. After the talks are over, if you guys run into any of my co-founders, they are the coolest people ever. That's Karthik, Tim, me, and Rit. And they're the amazing team that helped me bring this story to life, right? I'm able to stand here and say what I'm saying because of them. So thanks, guys. And one last slide. So this is a very cool slide for me. So that, again, was when I was 5 years old, and this is today at 25 years old, and it's just 20 years apart. And so if there's something that I want to share with you all is that, again, if you have a dream, chase it down, jump over every single hurdle, and run through fire and ice to get there. Because I think my life has changed. It's whether you are a product leader, whether you want to start your own company, or maybe you want to start dance classes, art classes, literally whatever it is, I think my lasting piece of advice for you all is to really just run into it. There's never a perfect time to start. So thank you so much. I will take all your questions.
People were very interested in your hippo part of the talk. Can hippos apply to your clients as well? How do you balance when your org only wants to listen to the highest paying clients?
Paying clients.
Or customers, people within the business or clients?
Okay, so I think there's two answers to that, right? When you have, for example, if I had the data back at Microsoft to go up to my boss's boss and tell him, hey, you are going to get the biggest bang of your buck for your buck because of XYZ reasons, and here's the data to prove it. Here's how our users as a whole are interacting. I think my life would have been way better off. So I think my recommendation is if you can get some sort of proof from your users to go and show your bosses or implement some kind of tool, literally whatever that might be, that would be my strong recommendation as a company. But from a customer point of view, yes, a lot of decisions are made, even the MVP program. They're probably our highest paying customers at Microsoft. And so how did we introduce, I actually helped work on some part of this as well. We had almost like an SMB division because the goals and priorities of smaller customers were quite different than our large customers too, right? And I'm sure that might be true, that you won't see an exact overlap, you'll see slight variances. So again, putting together maybe a package of all your smaller customers to make them look bigger potentially, and showing that to your boss and saying, hey, here's why we should invest in helping these customers as well. I think that could be a good start.
Yeah, excellent. What's the difference between Trymata and usertesting.com?
Oh, all right. That's a good one. So
firing some competition fights.
I know, I see that. I like whoever asked this question. So Trymata, we give you that full experience that we were talking about, right? So with user testing, you just have usability testing. With Trymata, you're getting the full, entire holistic experience from the start. If you have a website, let's even take Microsoft.com, right? You have Microsoft.com, you're understanding how users are frustrated with the product analytics tool with that website, and you're deriving those insights extremely quickly. Then you can go dump that and run usability tests. And as that cycle progresses and over time, you have all these insights, you have all this data about your users. And now we've actually recently integrated a research repository tool that you can actually dump all of that data over time, run any AI sentiment analysis, and just understand trends about your users over time. So really, it's the holistic picture.
Cool. In addition to that, going into it a little bit more, how does Trymata partnership with Trymata UI work to test products and get productivity analytics, product analytics in emerging markets? Have any examples or clients in emerging markets?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
How does Trymata partnership with Trymata UI work to test products and get product analytics in emerging markets?
Okay, so just to clarify maybe this question a little bit. So Trymata UI and Stitchology merged together, and now we're Trymata. So that's, a lot of people have heard of Trymata UI, and we're formally called that, but today we are Trymata. There's 4 co-founders. This is the all-encompassing solution that we've built. In terms of emerging markets, our tool is extremely applicable all the way to markets that exist today to emerging markets, right? So if the question is asking about potential clients and customers, we've worked with some of the latest technologies all the way to some of the oldest technologies. And then in terms of our technology, we have AI embedded into our tool as well. So you're getting the latest and the greatest from us.
Yeah. So product analytics seems like a very crowded space. How did your Stitchology analytics solution differentiate from existing analytic tools? What did it do that Microsoft Clarity wasn't doing?
Yeah, that's honestly an awesome question, right? Because you guys are right. There are plenty of tools out there, plenty of tools that I've used myself, plenty of tools that you've probably used. Think like Hotjar, right? So one of our largest customers, I told her this. I was like, by any chance, do you spend hours sitting behind the screen watching session recordings that make your brains want to blow out? Because that's what happens to me. And she said, yeah. Right? So think about the fact that when I was there, I experienced all of these frustrations from all of these tools, and I took all of those frustrations and fixed them in Stitchology. So you could with our product analytics solution. So really you can optimize and find your most frustrated users and just check those session recordings out, right? And you can filter out who are the people rage clicking the most, who are the people dead clicking the most. And you can even set up, there's so much customization that went into this as well. So it's a product built out of my frustrations and my passion towards this space. And if you guys are interested in checking it out further, please do.
Okay, well, let's give Shruti another